Welcome back to another episode of Capes and Tights. I'm your host, Justin Soderberg, and that's Paul Eaton of Galactic Comics and Collectibles on Hammond Street in Bangor. I don't know if you listened to my poll list a couple weeks ago or whatever it was.
Yeah, you had people
State
lost.
Street. I was like State Street. I'm like, what comic books on what stores on State Street? I don't know. Go to State Street, see if you can find something. But they're on Hammond Street.
I actually
Bangor.
looked at a location on State Street back in the day.
See, there you go. So you could have
Yep.
been on State Street. Paul hasn't been on for a while, but we're going to get back into this, trying to figure this out. And I'm even looking at the schedule, Paul, trying to figure out another time for you to come on. And
Yeah.
I don't even we're just like, if everything moves because of all the new stuff that's come out, like over the pandemic beginning part, we were on a lot because there wasn't much going on for like
Right.
WandaVision when there were no movies were coming out or whatever. But Adam and I are just going to be straight out, but we'll figure this out. Maybe we'll do some bonus episodes that aren't
There we go.
specifically the numbered episodes, but we're here to talk comic books, which I like. We're going to talk about graded comic books and ungraded comic books and so on. But before we get started, how is the shop?
Shop's going great. It's been busy. The comics are excellent. We've got, everything coming in and out. So many new stories and story arcs launching. I am just noticing as I'm sitting out back here that we are like severely blistered on Funko Pops. It's time to get more of those in. And everyone's favorite, Pokemon.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I still
We do a Pokemon podcast.
It was so funny how like I tried to steer the direction of the conversation the other day. I was like Pokemon person, and I was just like, yeah, and I like get up and I'm like, oh, I watched The Dark Knight the other night. Can we talk about comic books in this store?
Please. Please.
Pokemon's a big thing.
Pokemon's great, but please, we're a comic store still.
You gotta pay the bills, man. If people want Pokemon cards, you gotta give
do.
people what they want. Yes, exactly.
Yep.
But
Yeah, and Pokemon's fun. It is. It's great.
and I'm glad it's not like what you guys were talking a little bit was about actually playing,
Yeah.
which I respected a little bit too, because there is this side of like, I don't just collect comics. Like you have people that come into your shop that literally collect, they buy, they bag, they board, they put away.
They grade.
I read, you know what I mean? Like I read the books. So I feel like in the same way of someone collecting Pokemon cards that actually plays Pokemon cards. Not saying you have to play them. Obviously,
Yeah.
this book that's in a case, I can't read this book.
You're not going to read that.
But I can read another copy of it. So yeah, I've actually I've started grading my first book this year. This is my first year that I've actually sent, or 2021, I should say. We're in 2022. Because it takes
It takes that long anyways.
I submitted it in 2020.
2019 was my first year of grading. I'm still waiting for it to come back.
Can't wait for it to come back. That's no offense. It is what it is. So Paul,
It's slammed. They are busy.
let's tell the listeners who may not know, what is, when your definition, doesn't have to be the perfect definition, but what is a graded an officially graded comic book?
Officially graded comic book. So I brought a couple examples along. So for anybody that doesn't know on this podcast, this is a comic. Pretty easy.
Weird. You picked a Scotty Young comic book.
I know, isn't that weird? Scotty Young comic. Where did that come
Yeah.
from? And then you have your graded comic.
Yes.
So you have your slab, and you got a lot of different things for grading. For one is preservation. Their cases are very secure, obviously. They're designed to keep the book sealed. You have your grade, and you also get it's a cool thing if you're getting a signed book. It authenticates that signature, which is a big deal in signed books. Anybody can print a COA. If you've got that graded and slabbed in there with a signed comic, then you know that autograph has been authenticated. And that's a big deal for that. So it can obviously affect grades, can affect values. There's a lot of different reasons why someone would grade a book. I still remember seeing my first graded book and going, why the hell would you do that? I can't read the comic.
And that's the one thing I'd love to get into in a conversation as well. And it's part of this episode, which is the benefits and negatives to the positives and negatives to slabbing. We're going to use the word slabbing a lot because I think that's the term. Encapsulating is not a term I want to say. There's positives and negatives. For the first many years, I just mentioned that the first graded book that I bought was in 2021. Bought off the shelf, and then the first one I actually sent out to a grading company was in 2021, and I've been collecting comics for a number of years now. I have thousands and thousands of books and only a stack of graded books, and that's mainly because I was like, but I want to hold on to it. Once it's in the plastic, you can't, there's nothing you can do about it anymore. It's in there.
It's kind of done and gone.
And then I thought, well, it costs $20, $30 to get done. You have to ship it out. It's gone for a number of months, and all that stuff kind of turned me off until I realized that I started seeing some value because
Yep,
obviously, as
certainly.
we know, we talk about they're guaranteed in value, and B, preservation. Like I sent
It's a
out
big
some
part.
books that don't mean anything and don't really mean anything, aren't as valuable, but I want encapsulated. And I wish I had the example, but I had to send it back out. That's one. I would say I have one here. It's the Scotty cover
Got it.
here, 9.8.
I mean, they do go up in value, especially being Scotty Young
Yep.
books, but that is from my personal collection. And the sole reason I grade it is because I display it in my home office. And I'm like, I might as well slap. I didn't care what grade it came back at, realistically. It's a 9.6, which is nice, but.
And like I said, I wish I had it here because I actually had to send it back out because of the fact that it came back damaged from the shipping, which was the 9.6 Spawn. And Spawn number 1, there is a number of Spawn number 1s on the market.
There's
so
a
it's
lot
not
of
it's not a limited edition. It's not,
no, God, no.
I sent it out. If it came back at 8.5, I don't care. I want this Spawn number 1 forever. And if I have it forever, I have a 11-month-old son that he can really gnaw on the side of it, and it won't damage the book. It can't be ripped. Can't be like if water spills on it, all that stuff.
They're actually UV protected. You know,
and so I sent it out to get graded, and that's what I wanted. Came back at 9.6, so I was pumped. But and to get on that too, 9.6, just to let anybody who doesn't know, it's graded from a 0.0 or 0.1 all the way up to a 0.5. 0.5, sorry, 0.5 all the way up to 10.
To a 10.
Which we talked about in a shop the other day, which is there's very little number of gem mint number 10s on the market.
In all of my years of comic store owning, comic collecting, and the whole deal, I have never in person seen a 10 or a 9.9. Mm-hmm. They exist. I see photos of them. I see people in their collections. We just talked about Joe Schmalke got one back. Black Caravan. We love you guys. But I have never had a 10 in my collection or a 9.9 in my collection. My highest grades are a 9.8, which is considered like a near mint perfect book in the standard. It's obviously one minor flaw somewhere to drop you from that 10 to that 9.8, but it's got to be pretty minor and all.
Okay, because what I don't understand basically is that like I see this 9.8 here. I have a Berserker number 1. It's if anybody can't see it, it's a foil cover, second printing. And the reason why I sent this one out is it's actually more valuable than the first printing because the second printing had a very low run, and this was the foil cover of it. So it ended up being.
Where did you get that book from? Anyways?
I wonder where I got that book from. It wasn't encapsulated or slabbed at the time.
Nope.
And so I sent this one out to get graded because I thought this would be worth doing and so on. It's a 9.8. What did I do, Paul? I bought it from you.
Yep.
It was bagged and boarded at your shop.
Yep.
I brought it home. I put it in my package, my safe secured spot, and then I sent it to them, and I got a 9.8. Nothing. Yep. This book was never read. This book was never really basically came out of the box from you, and then it was put into a bag and board, and it was handled in a bag and board, and it's a 9.8. So the 99.9% of the time, you're going to get a book off of a shelf. It's going to be a 9.8 or 9.6, not a gem mint. So my thought is like that gem mint, we don't kill spiders, had to have been like Scout printed it. Yeah. And then they're in Florida. It went across the street and dropped it off at CGC and was like, slab this now. Like that's the only way. Because as we know, if people are comic book fans, Diamond doesn't send that well.
Nah, they do not package well. I have a customer that I knew that was a very hardcore grader and a hardcore speculator. That was his deal. He doesn't read comic books. He could grade everything he owns. He doesn't care. And he was saying to find 10s, the only way is if you ordered in whatever package lot a series comes in. So if they ship them wrapped up in a 50 count or 100 count or however they come in a wrapped bundle, then the direct middle of them, you stand a chance of hitting 10s. Mm-hmm. But overall, to find a 10 that has been shipped individually, which they come, like all of my books come in every week, completely individual in a box. They're not even in order, or like you can find like Spider-Man next to Hulk, next to Spider-Man, next to We Don't Kill Spiders, next to Spider-Man again. Like, I don't know how they pull these things. There's no rhyme or reason to any of it. Mm-hmm. They're going different directions. Like, I question if they're like throwing them from across from like frisbees. Like, oh, hey, this guy got another one. So like that seems to be the only way of truly getting one that's supposed to be a perfect book, is if you can manage to get that middle section that has been protected by all of the books around it and sealed up. That's
so while you were talking,
the 10-0.
while you were talking, I went to Google, our handy dandy friend of ours, Google,
The
and
best
I
thing on earth. for
Googled
search,
how many
right?
are there, how many tens out there, because obviously there is a number. It's not on here, but I couldn't find it easily. But there is a like CGC has those statistics, like it's out there.
Yes, you can do that per book. Which another cool thing of graded books is the barcode on them are individually created. I don't know if you see that. There's a barcode, and you can actually go in and find that. Like this is saved. It tells you how many of these books exist in that grade, how many exist above and below. So that's a neat thing.
Which anything that I have here, I can actually show because I can get onto my account and see it. But what I was looking for is there's actually a couple that on here that are like, oh my gosh, can you imagine? Spider-Man #1, the silver webbing, Todd McFarlane.
Yep.
That one there's a 10 out there of that one, which is pretty crazy.
That's impressive. I mean, that was printed in the multitude. There's so many of those books, but to find a 10 from that era.
And
CGC
the fact
didn't
that
exist then either.
Yeah, exactly. The fact that it had to sit somewhere for that time before it got to CGC. There's a lethal protector.
Oh wow.
#1.
That foil is a hard book. Foils can be hard. They can be great because they're generally thicker, but they can be really hard to grade because if you crease them, there's no forgiveness. So a little bit about grading. You can get your books pressed before grading. You do a mild amount of heat and time, and you press them. Kind of like the idea of pressing your laundry. And in a standard comic like this one that is not a foil cover, if there's minor problems, you can actually press that problem out. Slight little dings that don't break the color. But in a foil, there's no forgiveness. How they are is how they are. You can't press them. You can't do anything to them. You can try to cold press them, but it's not really going to solve an issue.
No. And so to back up a little bit, just the fact that I didn't want to do it and it changed my mind. Now it's more like the key books that I have. I just mentioned before, I think we got on here, is I think about 16 books at between CGC, which is one of the two companies. We'll talk about that in a second. Between CGC and CBCS. I have, 4, 8, 9, 10, 11 books at CGC and 2 books at CBCS being done. So it's 13 books that are out, and I didn't have any before 2021.
This is a harder topic, by the way, to stay in like some sort of progression of interest and order than I really thought it was going to be. I'm like, oh, this is easy. But then, if you're talking to someone who doesn't understand grading and doesn't necessarily know about comics, as far as like, there are people that don't understand that comics have value still, which shocks me because you would think like that's a pretty easy thing. But there's still people who don't consider a potential end game value of comics. So when you start trying to think about someone from that perspective that's listening to this, it does never, ever thought of a value of a comic book. There's a lot of information to be like thrown out.
Absolutely. And so there's 2 companies that are major companies. We talked about before we started recording. There's 2 big ones. There's some other smaller ones. Again, Paul and I discussed off air that like, that's the only 2 companies we would ever send things to.
Yes,
there's no other companies
I would not trust the other ones personally. As a dealer in comic books, I look for CGC and CBCS if I am doing it as the store or doing it as a collection coming in, and anything else I don't even really look at. Like those are the 2.
And there are benefits to both of them. I mean, CGC is more of the name that people talk about. I guess if you use it as a Kleenex term, like as an idea that someone says CGC, they mean graded, and that's because they're the ones that's like they're the big ones.
Literally, some people say I have a CGC.
Yes.
They don't say I have a graded book.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's like there is this CBCS, which is a lesser known company, but more growing and growing and growing as a company.
Absolutely. CGC was first.
Yes.
They were first.
And so there's benefits to both of them. They're both, I think one's in Texas, one's in Florida.
Yep.
CGC's in Florida, CBCS is in Texas. CBCS is trying to do more guaranteed times and all that stuff for turnaround. So one of the things I want to mention is most of these companies have very few number of graders there. So what happens is a book goes to CGC, for example. They do an initial looking at the book and they write all the information down, make sure it's organized and so that your book is guaranteed. And once they have in possession of it, they're not going to try to destroy it and so on and so forth, which we can get into in a second. And then they have a number of graders that grade it in a scale. So they go through and they start with a 10 and they mark off things until they get to the point where they're like, okay, this is what the grade is. But then they submit it. And what I've heard, and I don't, you could correct me if I'm wrong, but it's multiple people who grade it and they don't know each other's grades. Three people.
Three people without knowing each other's grades.
And so that then they pick, if they're all 9/8, they're 9/8. If one's a 9/6, then obviously they do some figuring that out. If twos are 9/8, one's 9/6, likely they go with the 9/8.
I would assume, yeah. If two match, then they probably go with that.
With that, because it's 2 out of 3. And so it's like the lowest score gets knocked out, like in the Olympics, right?
Right.
The Russian judge. And CBCS is in, so the CGC is in Florida. You send it to them. They do that stuff. CBCS is in Texas, like I mentioned. They grade it, they encapsulate it, they put it packaging in a supposed to be very good packaging and send it back to you. And then you get your copy. And again, like Paul said, there's tracked on their website. You can see all those different things. If it is
with both companies. I wish I'd brought a CBCS book out. I have CBCS out front. I wish I grabbed a CBCS book too to show the difference between the two. But
so one I would like to obviously pick up is this Nova #1, which obviously recently, as of recent, has gone up in value because of the fact that they announced a movie or TV show. But the best thing, the reason I picked this one up is anything that's graded like a 9.2, 9.4, even a 9.0 and up, they don't usually give you notes on why it's that. Usually the notes are, or maybe be 8.5 and up. Honestly, most of those notes are not even written down in there because it's just you should know. There is like at the bottom corner here, there is a slight little crease on the page. I knew it wasn't going to come back as a 9.8. I thought this was going to come back at a 7.5, honestly. So getting an 8.0 was actually a pretty
extra boost. Nothing wrong with that.
But when you go onto your website and look at the CGC, they give you the notes on this book specifically, and I can actually have my thing open here so I can look at it here. Nova #1. They wrote down multiple bend on a back cover, multiple bends on front cover, multiple creases on back cover, breaks color, and multiple creases on front cover, breaks color. So they give you a little idea. Yes. And that's why they gave it an 8.0, which is great. I mean, I've got this 9.8 back with, it's a 9.8. You don't need any notes. It's a 9.8. Right. It's not perfect. It's just barely enough.
It's almost perfect. There is some extremely minimal problem with it somewhere.
Mm-hmm. And with a color break and things like that, like this, even with pressing, this book probably wouldn't have got any really higher than an 8.0. This book is because of the rips.
I would have told you to press it because you might have gotten an 8.5. You might have gotten a 9.0 if you didn't have the other non-color breaks. That's where you get into the pressing side of it.
And they have an option. You can have them press it too. Like they do have that fee, or you can try to figure out a way with, I know there's a guy, if people send out regularly, they press it themselves.
Yeah. When we get larger, I intend on having a press here in store and offering that. I clean books now. I do not clean, as I tell people, I do not clean books to an extent of trying to increase the grade. I clean them to increase the eye appeal on the shelf of the book, whether it be for sale for me, or currently I'm working on a personal collection from a customer who just wanted their books clean and preserved, and they just didn't know how to do them. So I'm currently working on that. And by the way, these ones are nasty. I had to take a break today. It is unbelievable how much dirt can build up on comics. People wouldn't believe it. I wish I had the boards right handy from where I cleaned these ones. I threw them out. There's like just filth along the edge of the boards, because when you take them, you put a board on the inside of the cover and on the back cover, and then you clean that cover and push everything off to the side. And the amount of grime and dirt that comes off them is incredible.
I mean, comic books in the first place weren't amazingly, they weren't designed and created for you to keep them. They were like magazines where you were supposed to throw them away when you were done using them. And so that's why
these old ones are so valuable.
Like Action Comics #1 and Amazing Fantasy 15. If anybody doesn't know, Action Comics #1 is first appearance of Superman. Amazing Fantasy 15 is the first appearance of Spider-Man.
Detective Comics 27. First appearance of Batman. So those are some of those key books that are always going to go up in value. Mm-hmm. So if people have the 9, the books that are like, I mean, a 1.5 of Amazing Fantasy 15 is like $15,000. It's like, I can't afford it. I can't afford. I looked. So there was a post I saw that somebody put up about if you had $3,000 today to invest in a comic, what would you buy? And I'm like, well, I would want something from AF-15. Mm-hmm. I cannot purchase a graded page of AF-15 for $3,000.
Yeah.
You can't be, there aren't any. And that's a page. That's one single page that has been graded, because they do grade pages. They do grade like stuff like that if it is your, rare books like that.
they'll grade less than a page. I don't know if you saw CGC post on their Facebook recently. Over the past couple of weeks, they graded the price corner of an Action Comics #1.
I cannot fathom.
I have to see if I can find this now so I could send it to you at some point. But
now, here's a question for you: does it come back in a full?
Yes, it does.
Comic case?
It comes back in a full thing, and it has like, you know how like these, if anybody can see, there's an insert in there to keep the comic book in place.
Yeah.
Well, theirs is and it has it's right in the middle there. You know how like if anybody doesn't know, the Last Ronin is an obscure size. So the grading is more of a magazine size.
It's in between magazine, gold and silver, and everything else.
And so they kept it, and they put it like there's there's a big empty spaces on either side of it to kind of like make it fit. I'm trying to.
They could have put that in a because CGC now does non-sports cards. So we've sent Pokemon cards to them. And you could have put that like in a sports card holder. Like here's your tiny piece of a cover of.
Where was it? I'm trying to find it. Where you're talking.
#1.
Well, here's one that's an example of that. A 9/8 of Star Wars: The Force Unleashed. It's like a small little tiny Dark Horse comic book thing.
Yeah.
Same thing. It was put in a regular
the old
size
mini
one.
ash cans.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had a GI Joe one.
Here it is.
Of those. Yeah.
Okay, so CGC certified Action Comics #1 cover piece. It's literally just the thing that says #1, NO.1, and it's blue. Okay. Certified that it is. And again, where this says a 9.6 or a 9.8 on it, it says CVR for cover.
Yep.
Sells for $7,101. A piece of a cover. Now, here's the deal. A piece of that cover, non-CGC certified, $5.
Yeah,
like you would never be able to sell it because no one will be able to guarantee that.
No one would be able. Yeah, no one could tell you.
I'm trying to figure out how CGC as a company figured out that's what it came from. That's like that's a hard process. Like carbon dating. Is it like what's going on with that?
Comparing it with the back, because I'm assuming they have like images of what the inside back cover would look like. That would be an interesting like thing to see. It'd be cool if they actually like recorded like a TV series, a mini series you could watch on what it's like in the world of grading and the stuff that comes in. Like, imagine the crazy stuff that comes in.
Do you want to know why they don't do that? It's because they probably could do it a lot faster than they're doing now, and they don't want you to know that. The truth of the matter is they could probably turn it around in 2 or 3 weeks.
Jelly donut.
Because but what I saw on the website was that they only have 20 graders. And if think about the size that company probably is now and how many books they're doing on a daily basis, it seems like it'd be one of those things where they'd train more people, we'd have more people. But
that was 20 graders after a hiring.
Yes.
They actually at one point during like the COVID closures and then the reopenings, they went through a big hiring spree to try to get people. But there are some rules, and I don't know how true it is. I've heard this, that they do not hire comic collectors, because it could create a conflict of interest, right? If you're a comic collector and you happen to own a high grade book,
you own this book and you're like, I don't want,
you might say,
9.6.
I don't want more 9.8s of these out there because mine will go down in value. So it's the 9.6. And it would make sense if that is true. I don't know that to be like an actual true thing, but I don't know. Like if you look at it, like to us, right, as comic people, like, oh, it'd be so cool. Imagine all the books you could see and finally like touch, like you could finally touch an AF-15, but
I'd be scared.
Oh my god,
it's not yours, it's someone else's AF-15. So like you're not even like, if I damage this, it's my fault. That's what goes down in value. It's someone else's. But like if you actually look at this job as a job and you're not a comic person, can you imagine how monotonous and boring you spend? Like who knows how long? You know, it's probably an hour or so an issue, 8 hours out of your day looking at some comic that you don't care about, like in a small room that's all enclosed. Like, all right, let's see it. You know, okay, yeah. Make sure I don't touch it. Make sure I don't drop it. Make sure I don't do anything to it. And this is why I come up with a grade. And you send it along. Here comes another book. Like, it sounds like it would be I'm sure a miserable like job. Hopefully they pay their people well. I have the statistics really quickly as I remember. I have the statistics for it. So basically, if you go to your account for CGC and it says total graded by CGC in a 9.6 or higher. So if this is my Spawn comic book, right?
Yep.
In a 9.6 or higher, there's 4,500 on that they've graded.
Yep.
Okay. In a 9 or in a higher grade, so it would be a 9.8 or a 9.9 or 10, which is Again, I don't know if there is
It's gonna
any
be pretty
tens.
hard on that spawn one. Holy smokes.
There's 8,853. And so there actually is, according to them, a 9.6 or higher. There is about 13,000 copies that are graded out there. And so I go to Google or go to eBay right now, for example. So there's some things that I've always had to debate. So one of my favorite covers of all time is Carnage #1 from 2015. It's a Michael Del Mundo cover. As Paul knows, I'm a big fan of Michael Del Mundo. And I wanted to get that graded because I wanted to preserve that. And one of these days when I have my own office again, the idea is to, decorate.
Cover it with those books. And yeah.
And so I went to send it out and realized that shipping it to Florida was about $10, and then you have to pay for shipping back. So that was about $10. That's $20. It's $25-ish to get it graded. Okay. So that's a $45 investment, right? What did I pay for the comic book in the first place? I paid cover price because I bought it brand new. So $4. That's $49 right there. Right now on eBay, free shipping, $55 for that comic book graded. And so to me, it's like, I'm just going to buy it and I can get it in a week. Whereas, and then I have an extra copy that I can actually hold and I have a graded copy. So there is some things when you're thinking about grading books, make sure you do that research first, because there is some books out there that sell less than what it costs to actually get it graded. And some of these people are like premium members where they get their grading done for like $5 as they're paying yearly fees and all this crap.
And tons of stuff and sending in hundreds of books.
Yes. And so you save on shipping because of all that stuff and so on and so forth. So some of these people are still profiting on these, but some of these people like myself who send in a lot less comic books, it might be worth looking into the idea of buying it pre-graded. You're buying it with confidence because you're buying a guaranteed collectible. You're not buying a comic book that someone says it's a 9.8. You get it, it's really 7.5. And so those are the kind of things I would say is a precautionary tale for you, is just to do some research to find out, if it's worth it. I've said to you, people, if you've had books on your wall where I'm like, why did someone send that out?
Why did they grade that in the first place?
If you're going to grade it because you have a personal connection to it, awesome. But why is it on your shelf?
Right.
Because someone didn't want it.
Then you got rid of it.
And so those are the kind of things. That Carnage book is probably not worth $55, but to me it is, because I love that cover. It's one of my favorite covers of all time, and I want to own it. And that's what I've done recently with some Michael Del Mundo books, where I'm just like, I have to own this book. Like the cover is so amazing. And so that, and then the Nova #1, my son's name is Nova. And so the one I was trying to say about the difference, the positives and negatives of both companies, this, like we've seen both companies take a long time. Supposedly CBCS is supposed to be getting better at being faster.
That's their big push.
Their cases are identical, basically. The only difference is their strip across the top is different.
They are now. CBCS, I will say, their older quality cases were not as high quality. They are much better now.
So this is a CGC cover. It's got the blue strip on the top, which is a generic. This is their generic cover. Their generic strip from the top has a little white box of the CGC on there.
Let me go grab one while I'm going to grab the CBCS.
And then on here you have it says white pages, so it tells you the color of the pages on the inside of the book. Some would be like in an older book would be off-white pages or so on. And then you have it says variant edition. All the information on here is CGC universal grade. So there's different color strips on these. Most of them are this color because people just send them out and come back. There are ones I don't have it back yet, so I have one that's out. That's the Infinity Gauntlet #1, being signed by Jim Starlin, and it was supposed to be signed by George Perez before he became more ill. And the symbol in the corner is actually a drawing of George Perez. It's the George Perez label, which is pretty cool. You pay like $5 extra, you can pick your label. And I want to say that's one of the things I did with this Nova #1, signed by Scotty Young at CGC. Came back a great value of 9.6. And then I got the Scotty Young the label on it. So that's a special label, it's signature series. So the reason I brought this one up too, and as we'll go into yours really quickly, but I want to finish this out, is CGC only grades comic books that are signed and witnessed at CGC's facility in Florida. So Scotty went from his place in the Midwest and decided, I'm going to fly down to there. He signed all the books. They authenticated all of them, and they encased them. Now this is certified. There's no certificate of authenticity because this is the certificate of authenticity.
Yep, you have the barcode right there.
And so I'm really happy about this. Again, Nova #1. The benefit of CGC or CBCS to us, we talked about this, and that's the two books I have out at CBCS, is they're owned by Beckett. The same company owns Beckett, who has been doing
sports
cards for years and authentications and all that stuff for autographs. They'll actually authenticate your autograph for you. So it's for an extra fee. I think it was $20 extra. there's a team of people who will authenticate the autograph for you. So
Yep.
if you know for a fact, like I got this, I have a comic book signed by George Perez. He signed it for me in person. I guarantee myself that it's his autograph. With that being said, I sent it out and said, they're going to verify that it is. I'll be able to get back with the Signature Series logo
Get that yellow
for
label.
them. And it will be guaranteed that it's that because they authenticated it. Whereas CGC will not do that. They
Correct.
have to be there at
You
person.
get a different label that says that it was signed by somebody.
No,
they
it
think,
doesn't
or,
say
or
it.
there's something on it.
It
Something on the
says
cover.
there's ink on the cover.
Yes, there you go. Yeah,
That's the stupidest thing. It should say signed by whoever, unauthenticated, or something along those lines. Like it just says ink on cover. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Yes.
So CGC will do submissions if they have a representative at the place being signed. So I got my Stan Lee signed book at Boston Comic Con, and there was a CGC table, and I could have taken it over, and they had a representative, and I could have sent it right out and gotten a yellow label back on it. I didn't want to give my Stan Lee up at that point. And I also had the hope that I got a Scotty Young signed cover, and I'm hoping to get Scotty to sign it too. And then I will yellow label it through CBCS because then I can get the verification on both signatures. But I really want it to be signed by Scotty as well. So
the other one I want to say on that too is there's company, if you're buying it from someone specifically, so like for an example, our buddy Ben Bishop or our buddy Joseph Schmalke, who both are comic book artists and creators. If I buy a book that through Ben Bishop on his website that he personally sends to me at his place or his assistant sends to us, and he signs it, he can send it from his facility in Westbrook, Maine to CGC, and they will Signature Series logo on it because they're guaranteeing that Ben is the authenticator. He's officially the person. He can't verify Joseph's autograph, and Joseph can't verify his, but they can verify their own autograph. So that's another way to do it. So don't think that you're buying through an artist, even Scotty Young or whoever, and it says CGC authenticated. They're gonna get it authenticated. It's not just some random dude doing it.
Yeah. And this is your CBCS logo. So just to show. So one thing people love about CGC is that white box. Yes. And then we had a talk in store if that white box might have even been trademarked like directly to CGC. So you can see that you don't get that across that grade.
Slightly smaller. The white box makes it harder to read the 9.8 a little bit.
You don't get
logo,
the fade.
And the logo, the CBC or the CGC logo is that whole thing is like shiny, whereas that is like a CBC. It's like a shield of some sort.
It's one just shielded hologram versus the giant hologram. So it's funny how labels go into the opinions of people. And I've always said one catch is, more often than not, if you have the self-same book and the self-same grade side by side, the CGC will sell first. If you have both of them together and they're the same price and they're both, let's say you have 9.8 first appearance of Carnage, someone will buy that CGC book before they buy that CBCS book, even if you put them at the same price. You know what I mean? Because there is a chance that CGC might even be a higher price. You might say, okay, that one's a little bit higher. That one's $20 more, $30 more, and somebody will go, I'll take the CGC. And that's just, it's part of the market the way it is. And I think a lot of it goes in the fact that CGC has been around longer and was really the first big comic creator. Do you want to get into our grading experiences?
Yes. And so what I want to say quickly is, first of all, you have to, and we make fun of it as fans of comic books and people who send things out. It does take forever. So if anybody hasn't sent a book out to CGC yet, it takes upwards to 6 months. Sometimes it has seen other people take longer to get back your book.
We were close to a year on a return. Yeah.
And so it all depends on what's going on, what you're getting done, so on and so forth. And honestly, you actually are more likely to get your book come back faster if you send it out for a signature series. Because a lot of times if the signature
they put a
series,
guarantee on
they put a guarantee it's 6 weeks or whatever it is as a bonus to getting it signed at CGC. So I have sent out my first books to CBCS. They're supposedly, I did wait 6 months for my my Nova #1 and this the other books that I got back. I did wait 6 months. I'll see if it takes 5 months, then I'll be happy. And it's even with the authentication of the autographs, so it should take 5 months. It does take a while. It's worth it though. It does when it's a really fun thing to get when you open it back up. And the cool thing is I thought to myself, I'll open it up and see what my gradings is. Once they ship it, it tells you what the grade is on the internet. So you can see what the gradings are when they come back.
Yeah, I made a point as a look.
Because I'm like, oh, this is cool. So the benefit again is keeping it encapsulated, keeping it safe, all that stuff. I wanted to give a little thing on that Berserker before we get into our experiences itself. This Berserker #1 second printing foil cover. Just to give you a little idea, they're not selling for this right now, but it's supposed to be what the value is supposed to be at. Is 9.8 of this book ungraded, right? It's supposed to be a $113 book. I bought this book probably for $30, probably the day.
It was, sounds right
around that, right around that $30. I didn't cheat Paul. Like, this is not like I swindled him out of this. First of all, Paul couldn't guarantee me when I bought this book it was a 9.8. He can't because it's not his place to actually guarantee. He can say, I guess that's a 9.8. It's also at the time wasn't aware of how low of a printing it was. Like, it was like when we bought it, it was because it was a foil cover, second printing.
One per store variant ratio, but there was a weird ratio in it. It went off of how many your store had ordered of 1 and 2 combined, gave you that second printing of #1. So that was a weird book for sure.
It was. So $113 raw. It's a raw. So we didn't talk about that yet either, but like raw means unslabbed, ungraded. And then you have slab or graded comic books. And it's selling, or it's supposed to be worth about $250 now that it's in plastic. And so that's the little idea of what it's supposed to be like. The Nova #1, again, because it's an 8.0, went from like $170 value ungraded to $190 graded. And that's just because it's of lower value. Usually the lower value books don't usually go up in value when they're graded. You're just guaranteed that they're going to basically stay at that value. They can't degrade them because they won't go bad. Which
goes to this one, which is kind of an odd one. So this is a 1992 Amazing Spider-Man annual number 26 and a 9.8. This is not a key book. It does not have, it has, a New Warrior cover. Great. This is $130 is what we have it in store on a retail level. And the reason why realistically is because it's a 9.8 from 1992. The odds of finding a book from that era in a 9.8 are slim to none. That book raw, if it came in my shop, anywhere from $3 to $5 probably. But that goes into that cool graded aspect of it. Like, oh man, to find a 9.8 in that era. We had a 1979 Spider-Man 9.8 that sold in store for like $150, and it was the point of a 1979 still being in a 9.8. It wasn't a key. It didn't have first appearances. So it's interesting to see how that grade can affect even your, non-key, non-valuable books, quote unquote, let's say.
Yeah. And Paul's list taking offers on that book, just to let everybody know. You don't have to, you can go in there and make an offer. It's fine with him. He'll take an offer on it if you want to put it out there.
We run a good bartering system around here.
Tell him Capes and Tights sent you.
That's right.
But so we have some things we want to talk about a little bit about, like our experiences again. I will say that at the very beginning, we probably could have argued, I could have argued, don't slab your comics. Like if we talked about this a year ago, 2 years ago, and you could have argued slab them. And now we're probably more on the lines that we kind of fake to have that conversation, because I feel like we're both in the same. There's times to do it. There's times not to do it.
At the end of the day, a slab book, I equate it to, I used to collect sports cards a lot. And once you slab it, it's like having a sports card. It's like having a card. You're not going to do anything else with the comic. Now, I personally collect mostly trade paperbacks to read. And then I collect Scotty Youngs for my personal collection. So realistically, I could grade every single Scotty Young book I have. I'm not going to get rid of it. It keeps it safe forever. I'm never going to worry about dinging a corner in a box or anything else happening to it. Like you said, my, the kids, the cats, anything else damaging it, will be safe. But I'm obviously not going to invest the, I don't even know what the math would be on that, how much it would cost to slab every single Scotty Young book I have in my personal collection.
Maybe one day.
Maybe slowly but surely, right? Slowly but surely.
And it's a thing. It's like, start with your higher value books so that you're guaranteeing that they're going to stay in that value. It's why people cover their cars up, sports cars up, so they don't get sun on them. It's why, you put top loading plastic covers on some of the books that I'm getting ready to send out at some point, because it's protecting the book as a slightly better version of it. Again, they don't fit in your normal comic book box, a long box or short box. They have special ones that are like, you have to get like a magazine style, or they have CBCS.
The magazine CGC boxes.
And they so there is this downside to that. I say we can talk some of our experiences at that, and then I want to jump back to a couple of things I would say that irk me about people who grade books. But why don't you start with the experience with a Captain America book that
I wish you were sitting here beside me.
Well, he sold it, so why would you be upset about that?
Yeah, because I can explain some of that. All right, so I'm a CGC retailer. I was a CGC retailer, which in theory gives me some extra perks and benefits, which is another shout out. If you are going to grade, check in with your LCS.
Yes.
Most LCSs do gradings. You can save a little money because they're going to be shipped as a group unit. So it's a good thing to check out. And most stores, I think, would have someone on hand that can give you a rough idea of a grade. I can grade very roughly of what I will tell you this book is, and I usually grade in the way of safety. So you may get back a 9.4 or a 9.6. I'm going to safely say this book's a 9.2. Looking at it right here, this looks like a 9.2 to me. You may get higher. I'm always going to go a little bit to the side of caution and make sure I don't want somebody disappointed with what they get back. So just a little shout out to, check in with your LCS. But I sent out books for grading for the store. It was a combination of customer books and stuff for the shop. We had a Captain America #1 hip hop variant. 9.8 I thought it was a perfect book. It is the first appearance of Sam Wilson as Captain America, which is now that they've had the Disney Plus show has become a huge book.
Yep.
The hip hop variant is a black and white, and it's a cover, and it's an homage to one of the CD labels. I don't remember which.
I was looking up while you're talking. Yeah.
Okay, you check that out. I can't remember which cover it's in homage to. But anywho's, they're very, very hard to get back in perfect condition. The black on them tends to scratch and ding and get color rub, which is when they get shipped, the books are sitting on top of each other, and the black will literally rub off in transit onto the other covers. So I felt this book was perfect. I sent it in. I got back a 9.8. It came back in a perfect grade, and it had a big chunk in the corner. When they put these in, let me grab my... They actually sleeve these first. They go in a little plastic sleeve, and then they seal them and put them into this book. So into this case. So when they sealed it, they crimped an entire section, which is a huge damage to that book. I got it back and I looked and I'm like, what the hell? Because here I am expecting my 9.8. I'm super excited. That book comped value at $320 on a Captain America #1 hip hop variant in a 9.8. I sold that book for $110 due to the damage in it. It is a 9.8. It was a perfect book when they graded it. It was a perfect book when they got it. It got to me in a extremely less condition. I was only offered by them to regrade it, which makes it a 6. Like
because they wouldn't.
It's not going to stay a 9.8. It's going to crush the value of it. So it became like a weird. This was a perfect book in the capsule. It's a perfect book, so they say. However, obviously you can see the damage to the book. I don't know how often that's ever happened. I can't speak for other people and say. I mean, you've gotten your books back and not had a problem. None of my other ones came back with an issue. But that definitely soured me on the grading process a little, and I am going to try the other guys. I'm going to try out CBCS. I love the fact that you can get a yellow label back. So I have a lot of signed Scotty Youngs in my personal collection that were not done through a CGC witness or anything. So I'm going to send them in and see what happens, and we're going to try them out as a retailer because I was so disappointed with that return.
And that's an easy fix for them to say, here's $200 credit to the thing.
Here's a credit to it. We see the comp difference. Anything, anything could have gone better than the way it did. And I was quite disappointed with that.
Yes, exactly. And it's if I get a book home and I open the book up and it's missing a page that I bought from you, you're gonna help me out. You're gonna fix that for me because I'm
gonna solve that problem. Yeah. So it was the customer service side of it that was the biggest. I think the biggest problem. Obviously, the fact that it happened and the fact that it's hard pressed to think that someone didn't notice that.
Yes.
There's
sections. There's not sections. There's stages.
Yeah.
To your grading.
So the grader said this is perfect. And they moved it on to the next place.
There's a thing at the end called quality control. I'm not saying that as a sarcastic thing. There literally is a quality control section in their place that goes through and goes, yep, sealed,
Looks
not
right.
rattling, looks good, package it up, send it. And someone would have seen that top corner.
It was.
I know where the corner was because I saw the book first.
It was very visible. It's very visible.
And then there's both sides to that. So there's the side to say to someone, no, that's a 9.8 because it says it's a 9.9 on it. So
when it got there, it was a 9.8. They agreed it was a 9.8. Yep.
But when someone's a collector, and unless that cover means an absolute lot to you, and you don't care what the value of the book is, you just want that book encapsulated in something so you can keep it.
Right.
Then the grade doesn't matter to you. Then it's worth, but it's only worth what you can get out of it, and that's the thing.
Yeah.
You graded this book not because you wanted to keep it in your personal collection. You graded this book as a resale, as a retailer
for the store.
Resale.
Yep, absolutely.
And so the option to regrade it is not going to help you at all.
No,
it's gonna help you in a sense because now it's the correct grading.
It would be
but
the
that
correct
doesn't help
grade.
the value of the book at all.
No, in that process, no matter what, that was a losing process. There was nothing that was going to win in that scenario.
In my experience, which was kind of a sad experience, when this book came back with my Nova #1, my Berserker, and this book, and then one other book, which was my Spawn #1, that came back from CGC, I was like, oh my god, I'm so happy to get them. They come in the sleeves that Paul has too. I just took them off for this podcast, which helps them not get scratched and stuff like that, obviously, because they're plastic.
They do scratch relatively easy.
And so I got it back and I'm like, this is so amazing. A 9.6. I'm so happy. The top up here, not damage the book at all, because there is a buffer on these. Like it's not like a
there's a
top
there's
loader.
A good little
inch, maybe 3/4 of an inch,
half an inch to an inch.
And up in the corner here, it was cracked, like separated up, like it had come up a little bit like there. So I debated, and I contacted them via email, and I was like, hey, I just want to let you know it was damaged in shipping. All the other books came back fine. That was the one that damaged. So I debated back with Paul, like maybe I'll send it back depending on what they offer me and stuff like that. The other thought was, again, I did it to encapsulate that book from being damaged.
You're not going to sell that book.
I'll put a little super glue in there and push it down and see what happens. I contacted them, and they said, there's a section on their website, and you have to go through their email. You can't just send a book back to do this. You have to get the approval to do it.
Yeah,
we go through mechanical error,
process.
And they pay for the shipping to and from CGC in Florida from here in Maine, and are going to re-encapsulate it for me for free. And the reason why they're going to do that is because, again, it's not Paul's thing was different because the book was damaged.
Yeah,
my case was damaged, so they're just going to take the book out very easily and put it in a new case, seal it up, and send it back to me, or maybe they'll super glue it. We'll see. And so I don't know how long it's going to take.
Over the corner.
I may not get my Spawn #1 back before the end of the year because it may be like, it's just an encapsulation. It may be back in 6 weeks because they're only re-encapsulated.
You don't have to grade it.
We'll see.
It's going to skip a lot of steps and all that.
And so we'll see how that goes back out. And again, like Paul said, we're going to try the other guys out. And that's just it. I said out. So the 4 that came back, my Scotty Young, right? So it's 5 I've had come back so far, and I have 11 there right now. So I have 16 books that will have CGC labels on them, not including ones that I've purchased in encapsulation. And I have 2 that are coming back from CBCS. So we'll see how that goes and see how that process is. And again, those books I sent out to CBCS were specifically to get back so I could keep them. I'm not doing anything with them. One's a Todd McFarlane signed Walking Dead variant, and the other one is it's the first appearance of Captain Britain in a U.S. comic, Marvel Team Up number 65.
Interesting.
And it was drawn by George Perez, but it's signed by George Perez. That's why I did that.
Beautiful.
So, someone who's not feeling well. But I wanted to get back to one thing before we finish this up, because I want to do about an hour on this, is stupid things to do. Like what things I won't not send out to CGC to get done. One of them is interior signing. We've talked about that in the shop, whereas there's times they will CGC yellow label if a person signs internally, but it's stupid because it's encapsulated. You can't read it.
Can't see the signature.
Can't see it. It's guaranteed.
Horrible. Happened to one of my customers. He got a Frank Miller, which is a very expensive signed book. It's not like Frank does signings, but they're not that easy to come by. And it was interior signed, and it comes down to like, well, you can't see the signature. It's authenticated, which is great. You know what's in there, but the catch on that signed books, you want that signature. You want to see that. You want to show that off. It goes back to how these, once they're graded, you lose that comic book side of it, and it now turns into more of that collectible side only. So you want to show off that signature. You want to look cool. The cooler, the better, right? We had a Stan Lee signed Wolverine in store, and it was the the time period that Stan signed it was during the death of Wolverine, and he wrote R.I.P. Bub on it, which was amazing because he doesn't do a lot of those specialty remarks on books. You could pay extra when Stan was alive to have him sign Excelsior on it. So it's not super common to say, but it's also not uncommon to see Excelsior Stan Lee on it. But to find something that he'd written extra was amazing to come up with. So that was really cool to have that R.I.P. Bub on there.
I am looking for something, by the way. I'm not just.
Justin's just left. Hello.
I don't know if you can see my Dr. Afro first appearance is right behind me. I bought that at your shop.
Yep. Yeah, I know where that one came from.
Let's see here. I don't know what happened to it. I was the shortest of example. Oh, there it is. Anyways, watching an example of a book that I will never send out to be graded. And not because it's not worth any value. I love this book and I love owning this book because this book is pretty badass. This is one of those ones that it's the first appearance of the test tube. It's Wolverine, number 80. Okay, it's the first test tube appearance of X-23, which has been obviously debated in comic book lore, whether or not that's the actual first appearance or not. Yeah. So this is one of them. The other one that I won't, because I would want to show people where it is. Like I'd want to be like, this is a book where maybe you pull out a book. It's not. It's like a what, $10 book maybe. And so it's not.
It fluctuates.
You know, I have 2 copies of it if you want one, Paul.
We actually sold one recently.
Oh, really? So I want to show people. I'm like, hey, look at this. This is kind of cool. It's the first, I had the debate and so on and so forth. The other one is the one where there's a racial slur on the inside of it. And that's the reason why the book is worth more money. It's the Immortal Hulk, what was it, 45 or something like that, where there was that racial slur. There's a Immortal Hulk number 6, I think it was, where Captain America was all red. It was a mistake. It was an error.
Yeah, it was a mis-ink or whatever.
So those are those things that were like, I feel like those things are great to get slabbed and protected, but in the same sense, it's like, but it's interior of the book. It's you want to kind of like prove that that's there.
That's where I would have loved to have seen like the interior signed Frank Miller. Would have been great if they did a little like screening of that and printed it on the back label where you could see what that actual signature looked like. That would, to me, would make that so much cooler and so much more interesting, because my customer came in with it. He won it not knowing exactly what he won.
Yeah.
And he brought it in. He's like, what should I do with this? And I'm like, dude, I don't know. Like, I have no idea where to go from here. Like,
swindle someone else.
Yeah, right. I mean, that's essentially what happened to him. Like, yeah, it's Frank Miller signed. And it was a Daredevil, which is great. It's something you would want a Frank Miller signature in. Or on, not so much in. And then it leaves you with that, like, well, what do I do with it now? Like,
but then that comes the argument of this one, right? So this is Amazing Fantasy number 15, first appearance of Amadeus Cho, who was Hulk at the time, or becoming Hulk at the time. It's also the first appearance of Blackjack, Monstro, Position, I don't know, Heartbreak Kid, a bunch of people who don't matter. But the reason why this book is worth that much is because the first appearance of Amadeus Cho. But the argument people are going to have with me is the fact that he's not on the cover.
Right.
So this is no different than X-23 or the racial slur or anything like that, because it's inside the book. You have to see the inside of the book. Yeah. So the only one, if I stand by that theory, then I should only get first cover appearances.
But you do get the label on there that does say first appearance.
It does say first appearance.
You get that.
And that's the other thing is the arguments you have on first appearances. So what happens
to Hulk 180 versus Hulk 181? Hulk 181 is as far as the collecting community goes and everything else, is the first appearance of Wolverine. However, he appears in 180 in a full-on panel. So realistically, 180 should be considered first appearance. But if you send in a CGC, you're going to get 181 as first appearance. There we go. Gambit. Perfect example.
So the reason behind this one is a shipping delay on this. So this was supposed to come out before this book. Right. So X-Men Annual number 14 was supposed to come out before X-Men 266, and it didn't. They ended up coming out opposite. So technically, according to the market, the first appearance of Gambit is in X-Men 266, and his second appearance is in X-Men Annual 14.
And because he's only goes by the name of Remy in it, not Gambit, and because it's at a small portion at the end of it, is considered a cameo appearance in that other book.
So they're both 1990, I believe, but one's late August, whatever. This is so technically the printing and the selling and the publishing date on this one is pre X-Men 266. However, the reason I even bring this up is because if you send these books into CGC, the X-Men 266 is going to come back with a label that says first appearance of Gambit, and X-Men This one's gonna say, it might say cameo, honest. I don't
It
remember.
says
But
cameo. Yeah, those.
I
those
know
really
for a
says cameo
fact this one
appearances.
says
For now,
first
anyways.
appearance of Gambit. And
Yep.
so that's the other thing, is they're kind of like the end all the arguments, because it's like, well, when you send it out to CGC, what happens?
Whatever CGC says it is what the market's going to buy it as. Yep,
And so
absolutely.
to me, it's like, it's cool to have both these comics, and I have them in top loaders because I want to protect them and I like having them. This is one of the first appearances that I like, a big purchase I made. It probably paid $30 for it or something like that. But it was
that
like,
was a steal because I sold the last one
yeah,
for over 200.
The second one I actually sold at the beginning of Guardians of the Galaxy #2's launch, which was the first quote unquote first appearance of Rocket Raccoon.
Yep.
But it was in the Hulk comic book, which was,
yep.
And technically his first appearance was not in that. It was in a previews, I believe, kind of like Star Wars and all those.
The new
ones.
Previews argument. Yes. How?
But we could go into that. We could do
first
appearance. I want to do a whole episode on first appearance arguments about the whole third cameo appearance and all that bullshit. But we can't. We don't have time for that tonight. But
that's such a
nightmare. The last thing I wanted to say quickly before we end this thing is, they are removable from those cases. So that's another thing that I thought kind of a precautionary tale is, if you felt like this is stupid, I don't want this in this plastic, you paid the money, or maybe you overpaid because you bought it that way, you can crack that. There is a way to get those cases open safely and get the comic books out. But
research
you can't
that well.
Yes. But the problem is they're pretty knowable. If you open it and then put it back, try to put it together, you cannot get it back together.
They do not.
So
no,
it's
they are designed to not
open.
go back together. And I have seen people that have done things like the one you just had, that Nova, where they said, okay, this doesn't look like it was cleaned. It doesn't look like it was pressed. And they get it out, they clean and press it, and it comes back at a higher grade. So,
well, that's the thing I was going to say, is that you also can't.
Older ones.
I can't. This Amazing Fantasy 15 volume 2, I should say. I don't own an AF 15 volume 1, but this is a volume 2. It's probably the closest I'll ever get to holding an AF 15 volume 1. It's an homage cover, obviously, as you can see that. But this came out as 9.0. Yeah. I was like, I thought it was more like a 9.3 or 9.4, 9.6, maybe. I can't argue with CGC. I can't call them and be like, this should have been a 9.6. What you can do is take it out of the packaging, which I recommend. You can also send it back for regrading in the packaging, but in all likely it's going to come back at a 9.0 again, because they saw it was a 9.0. And they're not going to go back on their original grading. But if you want to take it out, maybe press it a little bit, send it back in and get it regraded, they will do it. You just have to pay for it again. But for me, I'm happy. I'm like, okay, I'm not going to wait the 6 months. I'm happy with this being a 9.0. I'll be fine with it. Anything over a 9 to me right now is great. I would never probably have purchased this off the shelf with a 9.0. But
which is the next challenge to grading. 9.2 and above is considered mint in market. However, depending on the book, if it's a 9.2 and you're talking like that first appearance in Nova, oh my God, everyone lose their mind. If you have a 9.2 and a Spawn #1, which is very plentiful, and you were saying how highly they were, graded out there, how many of them are out there, everyone's gonna go, I'll try to find a higher grade one. I'll buy a Raw over that 9.2 because I think the Raw will come back a better grade, which goes in a little bit more into your grading and your values and stuff like that. So it's another thing to think about, kids.
Well, so finishing up, it's funny how you mentioned that. So my Hot Comics came out last week, according to this episode, because we're recording this a little earlier than it comes out. So actually it's already been on the website and been on our feed, but our Hot March Comics, and I put Nova #1 in that list. A 9.8 sold on March 25th, 2022, graded from CGC for $3,000. Okay. A 9.4 sold the exact same day, Paul. $420.
What a drastic difference.
7. Sorry, where is this? 8.0 when I have 275. So the idea that between a 9.4 and an 8.0, a couple $100 difference. A 9.4 and a 9.8, $2,600 difference basically.
Yeah, there's just so many fewer of them. And there are those books. Once again, if you ask them you want to get graded, you have your collection from your childhood and you're thinking, I want to get this checked out, check them with your LCS, because they're a great resource. I do it all the time. I just look at collections for people and say, okay, this is stuff that you might want to think about taking better care of. You might want to consider grading. You might not. I don't want to say I'm never getting arguments with customers, but I've had people that are like, oh, I'm sitting on this right now. I want to sell it to you. And I think it's a 9.8. And I can say, okay, as a store, I can tell you personally from my experiences, this is a 9.4 at best. Like, I cannot buy a book based on what it might be. I have to buy a book of what's sitting in front of me right now. So
this book I bought off the shelf, right? It was actually at Top Shelf because this is before you open your brick and mortar shop,
Yep.
or it might have been at the same time, but I wasn't going to yet.
Yeah, I don't think we had Strange Academy when it came out.
It's likely a 9.8. It likely is a 9.8. But
Right.
if I were to sell this on eBay today, I'd probably list it as a 9.4, or I would say I would write it as 9.4 or better. Because
that's where you're better to go very fine, near mint.
Yes.
You can actually find that information of what's considered ratios of raw books, of fine, very fine, mint, near mint, all of that stuff. And if you're gonna do your raw collection, you're safer to list that way because it leaves a lot more open area to grading than to say this book's a 9.8. That's the worst thing people do. Like don't say you have a perfect book, like without knowing.
In all likelihood, also, if your book's from the 60s or 70s and it's a key appearance, I don't care what it looks like. Send it out though.
Oh God,
send it out because I don't care what it looks like. Send it out. I have books in
Clean
my
it,
thing.
Press it, send it. Or get it. Both CGC and CBCS offer cleaning and pressing. I cannot tell you enough how much I suggest doing that on those books. Get them cleaned, get them pressed.
First Collector,
first
Agent 13 or Sharon Carter. Like those books are
huge keys.
And they're not. They're not. Definitely not a 9.8.
No.
And I would send those out probably.
Yep.
There's a list of. I have a whole thing of them that I want to send out. And Dr. Afra is probably going out pretty soon because I want that one. But it's worth it. I think it's worth it if you're investing in comic books or you have key issues that you want to hone. You want to give to your daughters, or I want to give to my son. You want to protect it for the rest of your life. Those are the kind of things. And honestly, we didn't talk cards that much, but the cards they've been doing cards longer than they've been doing comic books and grading. So
cards are so much harder. Cards are much harder. I tell people flat out when they bring in cards in here, I cannot give you a rough grade on a card because they are done at, you have to have like a microscope out to look at edges of cards. Comics are a lot easier to pinpoint immediate flaws in. So I can count down flaws in a comic way faster than I can do cards. And cards are, I feel like they're hard. They're surface, they are edges, they are corners, there are just the centering, which is, unless you have another one that's perfectly centered just beside it, it's very hard to gauge from just looking at them straight on. So cards are a lot harder. Yeah, take that to a local card dealer. Not this guy. No. Not this guy.
He does sell Pokemon cards, though, if you're
a lot of them. Pokemon. I sell a lot of Pokemon cards.
And so I want to do a little housekeeping, cleaning up here for as the thing. The hip hop variant for Captain America Sam Wilson #1 is a ASAP Rocky cover. I didn't know that, but it makes sense now if it says that. And the difference between a graded 9.6 Amazing Fantasy 15, according to Comic Book Price Guide, a non-graded is still worth about $500,000. A graded 9.6 sold for $3.2 million. So you're talking that much of a difference for, honestly, first of all, that's a very risky book to just send in the mail. So if I would recommend it is wait for CGC to come to a facility and then like work with them and
drive to Florida.
Yes, stand out front, knock on the door, stuff like that.
Yeah.
You have a book like that.
Because you can drop them off there. And pray to God they don't crimp it.
And
I will not own either version, a raw or a graded version of that AF-15.
You ready for this? A 0.5, according to Comic Book Price Guide, is $8,500. You're talking 0.5s could be missing part of the book.
Yeah, there's pages missing out of it.
And they will grade it without a cover. A 0.5
Yeah.
without a cover will be graded for you. However, that's a book that I would, if I was going to buy it, it has to have the cover on it because that's an iconic cover.
It is absolutely.
There's other books that maybe you'd be willing to get a deal on, but like even Action Comics #1, I'd probably get a deal on. For me, AF-15 we'd have to have the cover on it.
You want the cover. Yeah, you want the cover.
But yeah, we just rambled on for an hour about slab versus not slab. I don't think we missed anything really, but I guess if we did, and we'll pick it up next time.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it's hard saying. It's I don't know. It's an interesting thing. If you're going to get into grading, not grading, do you like it? Do you not like it? Are you a speculator? I feel like it's a speculator collector market if you're going to grade. I'll grade my Scotty Youngs because I'm never going to sell them. I'm never going to read them. I read any of this stuff and trade. I forget half the time that the Scotty Young book has a relevance to what it is. I have Moon Knight #1. To me, the only thing I care about is that it's Scotty Young cover. I forget that the Moon Knight #1 book is gone way up in value. I don't really care what it is. I only want the Scotty Young art.
By the way, I'm a big fan of episode 1. We're recording this. Episode 1 came out last night. I'm a big fan. I don't know if you got a chance.
I tried to watch it last night. My wife wasn't feeling well. I didn't get a chance. So hopefully, maybe tonight. Maybe
it's primo. I think personally,
I'm excited.
I'll give you a little hint. Someone said Night at the Museum mixed with Venom. That doesn't.
I mean, that's what it looks
anything,
like, which I'm skeptical on, but that's a whole other
Yeah.
conversation for later. We can do our Moon Knight talk, or our comics versus MCU talk.
Well, I have on the schedule at the end of the year, like we did this past year, talking comics of the year. There's 2 episodes that are going to go back to back, which is comic books of the year, and like talking about the year in comics and talking about the year in comic book related movies and TV. And so we'll do some things there where we kind of like do a synopsis on it. But check with your LCS too, your local comic book shop, because they also, some of them are retailers that you can actually get. It might be cheaper to send it through the comic book the LCS than it is to do it on your own. If you don't have one locally to you, or it's too much of a work, or they don't do that, you can sign up. CGC has their own like memberships where you get discounted
CBCS,
rates on it. And so send it out. Check out. I honestly tell you right now, they both have their flaws and they both have their positives. So there's not one that I think right now as it sits that is better than the other. Just expect it to be gone for a while. Like it's going to be gone for half a year at least. And hope that it comes back not damaged, because again, mine went out. Mine's going back there and it's not here in person because it's there. I have an empty holder up here.
The only thing that saved you is at least it was just the case, not the book.
I got to send that Foom number 12 out.
Yeah.
We probably should clean it, press it, but I think that one should go out. But
yeah, cleaning that, make sure a pro does it, because those that cover is sketchy.
And it just went up again because of someone making a movie based on Nova. But yeah, Paul's shop is at on 547 Hammond Street in Bangor.
Are you sure?
I'm very sure. I go there at least once a week. And yes.
Oh,
and you have books that are I've already technically quote unquote I didn't pay for them yet, but I've already pre-bought books for next week already because they're in my box.
They're in your box.
Did you find that Deadpool number 10 or no?
Yeah. I don't know where that came from. I have
put
no
that
idea.
There. On accident.
Put that there?
It's mine.
Okay, somebody found that. Yes, and somebody's like, I don't know why this was here, and I'm like, I have no idea.
Did you? If you still have it, can you put it in my box? Because I want to buy it.
Put it in your box. Yeah, it's out front. I'm like, I don't know where that came from.
When I was talking to you and I was sitting at that seat, I put it on the shelf and I went to check out and I forgot it was there.
Okay, that explains some things because I know where the hell that came from.
But 547 Hammond Street in Bangor, Maine, or you can go to Galactic Comics on Facebook and you're on Instagram. Galactic Comics BGR at Gmail.
Yes. Galactic Comics BGR at gmail.com. Find us on Whatnot. We're doing Whatnot auctions every Friday morning for comics. And we do action figures and stuff randomly on Whatnot. But yeah, best way is honestly right through Facebook or through Gmail. Send us an email if you're looking for something. Find us on Facebook. I update that way better than I do Instagram. I'm terrible with my Instagram account.
See, I gotta hook you up with a way of you post one, it goes to the other.
I know, but I don't like having. I want 2 different things. I don't want
sometimes it's worth
the same thing on Instagram.
But it's better than nothing being on there.
Which is what currently happens.
I do this for a living, Paul.
Yeah, I know.
The other thing is, I could probably do this. We've gotten some people on here. I had Tony Fleece on a couple weeks ago. We've had some big authors on here.
Yeah,
sure. We're gonna reach out to somebody from CGC or CBCS to see if they're willing to have a chat with Paul and I at some point and get some more of the inside scoop from someone from the grading companies to see how they do it, what's the actual things behind it. We'll promise we'll behave.
Yes, be nice.
Say anything negative, but
no, be nice.
Yeah, exactly. So if you're in the Bangor area, hit up 547 Hammond Street, Bangor, Maine. Open Wednesday through Saturday, and then every once in a while on a Tuesday. If not,
and this week possibly Monday. You never know.
And then hit up on Whatnot though if you're not in the area, because they'll ship the stuff to you.
Absolutely.
And if you see something on his Facebook page that you really want, message him on Facebook and say I want to buy this, and he'll set it up a way for you to buy.
He'll be coming to you.
Yep. I bought things off of his Facebook page before, and I go to his shop every week.
Sometimes you have to because stuff doesn't last. I have people come in that are like, "Hey, so I saw on Facebook like 3 days ago, my ass gone, dude. Yeah, that's gone. Yeah,
I've done that too.
We had, I had a transformer sell in 15 seconds from the time I put it on Facebook. Before I made it to the front counter, it was already gone. We had Deadpool's first appearance in Mutants 98. It sold in 3 minutes. I ended up with 17 messages for that book. In 3 minutes, that book was gone. So follow us on Facebook. Give us a shout out. We ship all the time. I ship to Hawaii. I've shipped to Puerto Rico. I've shipped everywhere.
And in 2 weeks from this episode, roughly 2 weeks from this episode dropping, their Bangor Comic and Toy Con is coming to the Bangor area as well. April 22nd to the 24th. Check them out. Tons of vendors, some cool artists. Your Tony Fleece, who was on a couple weeks ago,
Yeah.
He will be actually there, be there signing books as well. So check that out. So, and coming up here
Along with
next,
this guy.
yes, and next month, the first week of May is Star Wars week here at Capes and Tights.
Woo-hoo!
Sunday through Saturday, we will have an episode every single day featuring movie reviews, a talk with Tony Fleece on there, fun facts about Star Wars. So we're doing that every single day. There'll be a new episode coming out, which we're pretty
That's
excited
awesome.
for. So check that out if you're a
And
Star
May
Wars
7th
fan.
is free comic book day.
And May 7th is free comic book day. So check that out.
You've got like a huge thing going for you. You got Star Wars week, and you got free comic book day. We just
And they
talked about how
actually
you were going to try to
moved.
be in the shop for that.
Yeah, well, I don't even know now. I found out though, I think according to the plan, I was trying to figure out how I was going to incorporate my pull list every week that I do into
Yeah.
Star Wars week. And it sounds like there's at least probably 2 or 3 titles actually coming out on that day. It
There
sounds
always
like
is. I write Star Wars every week so many times.
Obi-Wan Kenobi #1 and the Black Kirsten thing is coming out as a book. It sounds like they would not move it around unless printing delays from
Well,
May
you never
4th.
know, boy. Nowadays, you never know.
Because May the 4th be with you is a Wednesday this year. So
Perfect.
So, Paul, thanks for coming on. Thanks for being here and
Thanks for
talking to
having
us. And Paul closed the shop up to talk to us. So make sure you go tomorrow and buy extra things to make up for
that's
the money
right.
he lost tonight.
Support your LCS.
But yeah, Paul,
Here, there, or anywhere.
I'll catch you next week.
Thanks, bud.